Okay, folks, it's about that time. Hello! Thank you all for coming. Another action-packed office hours session. I see a lot of you have already joined in from all over the world. Let's pause to think about how cool this is. Let's go through. If you haven't already said where you're from, let us know now. I'm just gonna read off everywhere. First of all, I'm in Los Angeles. Let's see. I'm just gonna read it off just because I think it's really fun to hear. So the first one I see is Mike from Portugal. And apologies, I'm just kind of, let's see, Michael from Germany. So far, 2 in Europe. How cool. Edmonds, Washington, and Maryland. Hey, Kathy from Oregon. I've talked to you before. Nice to hear from you. Lafayette, Louisiana. PL's favorite. Tennessee. Yoreni. Tennessee. I'm sure that's not how you say your name. Chip from Seattle. Dave from Kentucky. FF from Wales. Having a whale of a time out there. Sorry, dad joke number 1. Rachel from Georgia. Florida. Nancy Brown. Joanne from Knoxville. Victoria. It just skipped. I saw Victoria. This chat window is a little finicky, so if I lose you in the middle, don't. Let's see. Pittsburgh. Alaska. Raincrow from Alaska. Captain Lloyd from Florida. Lisa from Florida. A bunch of Florida folks. Tony from the Ozark Mountains. Now I have street cred because we have somebody from the Ozark Mountains watching, and Tennessee. I feel like that's real street cred. Denmark. Eliza, nice to see you. Florida. Blacksburg. Cindy from Blacksburg. Cecilia from Florida. Zero Defects from Phoenix. On and on. Okay, I think it's okay. Idaho. I'm just saying I'm gonna stop because it's kind of jumbled the way the questions are coming in, but thank you all for really cool to see you all here, and I'm just gonna get started. So, as usual, let me know your questions, and I'm gonna start with a previous question actually, and then get into your questions. I'll do my best to answer them all. And I have, let's give a shout out to Yuri, who's helping me. She's in San Francisco, and she's going to be writing down questions for me to make this easier. And so big thanks to her and all her help. And I'm going to get started with a question that I had in the office hours from January. I forget who asked this, but somebody asked about circular bowing. So circular bowing is kind of a better position. So you can see that my hand is doing a little bit of a circle. And so it's kind of a nice old time thing. And so I went and actually learned a little bit about it. It's something I sort of did already, but never thought of it as circular bowing. And so I went, and I forget if the person who asked the question shared a Bruce Molsky video, who's a great old time fiddler. And so I went and watched a little bit of how he does it and how his arm moves. And so I had some thoughts that I think could make this easier for you folks who are interested. And I'm going to offer a kind of a beginner way to do it, and then maybe a slightly more advanced way. So one way to look at it is instead of one way to start practicing it is to simply go G to D. So notice that just by doing that, oh, sorry.
Call from Slurs. Call from Slurs. Battery.
Okay, sorry about that. We Melissa's phone, my girlfriend's phone, is on the same speaker, and I think she just got a call. So I just turned off the speaker. You didn't need to know all that, but sorry for that little invasion of lesson time. So
Disconnected.
okay, so notice that it just simply going. I'm going G to D, and you can try this. Look at that circle that forms. You can do it on D to A. So this is a great beginner way. It's just simply, you can watch your right hand, and just play with it. Have fun with making the circle. And you know, a whole other angle I've been trying to teach is physical. Not only being aware of the physical body, like relaxing it and relaxing your left hand and your whole body and breathing, but to enjoy when you get that, to have that be part of the musical experience that you enjoy, the total experience. So that's kind of a tangent, but like I really want you guys to just almost have like a physically enjoyable, as well as like music's very emotional and intellectual, but I want you to physically just enjoy like a good sound, kind of the relaxation that comes. And then just once you get something, you know that feeling once you get something and it just starts to feel natural, and then you kind of, oh yeah, I got this. So anyway, going back to the circular bowing thing. So now I'm going to offer some progressively more advanced things for advanced players. So hold on just a sec. Okay. So now we're going to simply, let's go back to G to D, and we're going to simply do G, D, G, G, D, G. So 3-note pattern. That's kind of, we're leading towards something a little bit harder. So notice that what's another way to look at it besides a circle is that there's sort of a dip that happens. All right, so now just do the same thing but slur 3. So for beginners, this might be too hard. You might want to just stick with this. By the way, if you have your fiddle out, you might as well practice on your own a little bit. So always good to play everything you learn as much as possible. Get it out of your head and into your body and instrument. So now we're going to do slur 3. So this is my way of getting to the more complex kind of circular bowing, which is kind of like a figure 8. So my hand almost traces a figure 8. I'll move the microphone. So you can kind of see that, but I like to present different ways to do it because it makes it easier sometimes to see it differently. So another way to look at it is that it's a dip. I'm dipping down, right? So this is like the big step. Okay, if you can get this, and if you can't get it right away, don't worry. Just go back to the previous steps, and that's always the case with anything hard you learn. There's a series of steps. So if you're struggling with that, go back to just G, D, G, G, D, G. If you're struggling with that, just go back to G, D. If you're struggling with that, just get a good sound on G, and then a good sound on D. Maybe pause. So I'm going to kind of shift back to beginner focused and advanced, but even if you think you're advanced, approach things like a beginner. I try to do that as well. I try to always learn something and always just like I don't really know, and then see what I can learn. So finally, I'm gonna go back up to the advanced thing. We can now change the rhythm slightly, so instead of triplets, it's more 4/4 and more like. So that dip happens really quick. And then naturally, or maybe with a little bit of intention, you can start to do a double stop there. And what it eventually leads to is sort of a pulsing sound. So if I do a D to A, same thing. But let's not add any fingering yet. I just kind of want to demonstrate that once you get this on open strings, you can then do it on simple scales. So let's do the kind of one of the more intermediate steps. A little exercise. So I'm just doing. Open D, D1, D2, D3. Okay, so I'm going to be taking notes myself so that I can later give you some links for further learning, and also so that we can create a page of questions on FiddleHed that's all indexed, so you can easily find the question you want and maybe listen to this again, okay? So this is on circular bowing, and a related lesson, it's more of an advanced lesson on something called the pulse. I'm gonna, basically you're pulsing there. So anyway, I think that's good on the circular bowing thing. I'm sure there's something I left out, but I wanted to present a series of steps. I'm just going to go through them really quick and then move on. Absolute beginner, just practice going D to A, slowly with pausing. Slightly more advanced beginner, and really start to notice the circling of your hand and wrist. And then moving towards a more intermediate, doing triplets, and then slur 3, and then I love how gradual this is, and then kind of making that A note, the note on the A string, quicker, and eventually just turning it into a double stop when you hit the A. I'll probably do a full dedicated lesson to this with play along tracks and stuff. Okay, so cool. Thanks. I forget who asked that on the first thing. That's the first question. And now I'm going to move on to the next question. So just give me a minute here, folks. Okay. Sandra Henriksen would like to know about vibrato. So I'll briefly talk about vibrato. So this is another thing that I'm designing step by step, very careful lessons on, and I'll just throw out some things now. So the first thing is, if you're a beginner, if you just started in the last couple months or even half a year, I really recommend holding off on vibrato. You really have to. This is such a typical music teacher thing to say. You have to focus on a good sound, fundamental things. And this might be disappointing to some of you, but it's very important, and it'll ultimately lead for a better time for you playing, okay? If you can concentrate on good sound and have a good sound, then you'll enjoy what you do enough that you'll naturally want to do it the next day. I just recently wrote a post on the ultimate beginner pitfall, and I'll put a link to that too. But which is basically people are so excited to learn the fiddle that they want to just, once they get a couple tunes down, they're just like, okay, I want to just do every tune I've ever wanted to learn. And the problem is you start to set yourself up for disappointment if you do things that are too advanced. Then you start to be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm not that really cut out for this. And so it's very important warning before going into the vibrato lesson, because I want you guys all to succeed. And what do I mean by succeed? I mean playing every day and enjoying it. And that's what our goal should be. That's what my goal is with music. Sometimes I go astray, but then I remember, what's the point of it all? It's to enjoy this music. It's to enjoy doing this and share it with others. Okay, so all that philosophy aside, I'll now, so for vibrato, I think the easiest way to start is second finger, your middle finger on the D string. And maybe just start by holding it like a mandolin or guitar and trying to just roll it back and forth in a relaxed way. Just getting used to the motion. Now, another warning about vibrato, it takes a lot of time to learn it. I'm just going to keep doing it while I talk. It takes a very long time. You have to be very patient with it. All right? You may even, like, while you're listening to a podcast or on a Zoom meeting with your family or watching a TV show that's somewhat mindless, like a cooking show. Although those are good shows. I'm just starting to discover that they're actually kind of fun. Just get into this motion. And it's something, now this is something a music teacher would not normally say, to practice while you're watching TV. But there is some motion, some stuff you can do that's just like getting used to it. Another thing you can do, going off on this tangent of TV practice, is there's a lot of little physical things you can do, like fingering. Can you make your fingering light instead of clamping? Can you just lightly touch? So if you simply hold your instrument, this is a great practice. You don't even have to make any sound, play any music. Just practice. And then also practice keeping your fingers down as you go up. I totally got off on a tangent, but this will apply to everybody. And you can use a lot less pressure than you might be using. I've recently been experimenting with way less pressure than I have played most of my life. And finally, try to lift your fingers not too much. See if you can lift them like a millimeter off. And you might just want to start with your first finger. Lightly play it, lift it a teeny bit. Lightly play your second while keeping the first down. Lightly play your third. Okay, so this is a big tangent. This from the vibrato. So going back to vibrato, second finger. You're playing it. You're doing this in front of the TV or whatever. You can take a break from practicing something else and just hold your, and just get that. All right. So the next step is do that same motion. While holding it, it will feel harder. Free up your hands. So I normally have students, I want them, this part of their hand to touch the neck lightly. But for vibrato, release it a little. And then do the same motion. It'll be easier than if you keep it touching. All right? It will take a lot of time. All right, and then just start doing it with, maybe try like pulsing bows, like with little pauses, like. You might wonder, the question just comes to mind, what is vibrato? What's going on? Moving your hand, but what's going on with the sound? The pitch is going up and down a little bit. So one exercise that I use to teach this is a subtle sliding motion. This will definitely annoy everybody within earshot, but if you're serious about learning vibrato, this is what you could practice. Just put on a practice mute or something. And then eventually go back to not sliding it, but rolling it. You can play with the speed super slow. A little faster. You can do it in a rhythm like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 1 and so on. So that's it in a nutshell. You start with D2, and for an office hours lesson on the fly, start with D2 and then do it without even playing, then move it here and do it, release your hand, and then start to do it with simple bows with pausing. All right, and finally the most important part, be patient with this. It'll take a while, and if you're a beginner, wait. Just like Rick Steves, the travel guy, says, assuming you'll return to playing. Eventually, you'll be ready to do this. Okay. So thanks for the question. I'm now going to do the next question. So I have this handy list that Yuri is making for me. Somebody has a follow-up question, Lisa, to circular bowing. So I'm going to make a note so I can include it later. So where would you use it? Say you're doing a tune and you want to add in a little rhythmic pulse like Candy Girl. Something like that. You could basically, to answer your question, you can use it in tunes. That's just one example. Wouldn't do it the whole time. At certain notes it might apply. The long notes. So hopefully that helps with that question. I think I had another idea for that, but it's gone now. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, Rick Dale asks, having trouble with swallowtail, keep getting lost in the tune and making mistakes. Any tips? Okay, Rick, thanks for your question. Thank you all for your questions. So swallowtail jig. Really, the answer could apply to any tune that anybody is learning. You're getting lost in the tune. So getting lost in tunes. Okay. So I have a few main tips for this. One is listen to versions of the tune. So just listen. So if you want to learn we'll use Rick's current tune, Swallowtail Jig, as an example. Just go and listen to different versions, get to know that tune, make friends with it. You become intimate with it, and if you have a good mental model of the tune, you'll be able to play it better and remember where to go. The next thing is to really get intimate with each little part of the tune. Just a core teaching of FiddleHed to not play a whole tune. If you're getting lost, it's a sure sign that you're doing too big of a piece. You should break it down into a smaller piece, maybe even a smaller piece. So ask yourself, Rick, can you do this? Can you do that without getting lost? If you can, great. It's awesome. Maybe do it until it just feels like totally second nature. Play it, repeat 1,000 times on that. Do it different ways. And so I'm going to drill deep on this 1/4. Another way to get really, the goal is to flow with each part. If you can get each part to be very continuous and flowing, then when you go to put it together, you'll be able to put it together with flow. So you could take the same part, maybe start it on G string. You will learn it more deeply if you transpose it to another string, A string. Note, we're just doing this one little part, which you can transpose to 3 different strings. Okay, so once you get that part flowing, then you move on to the second chord of the A part. And then if you feel like you got that, loop on that. Use a drone track to make it fun. I use, I'm going to get mine up and running. This would be E drone. All right, so. Okay, so anyway. So you have the first sounding good, the second flowing, then you just do the same with the first half now. Now start over. Don't do the whole B part. And then just eventually you get that to that point, then you do the second half of the A part. Once that's flowing, get the whole thing to flow. Maybe just get the A part to flow, Rick, for, one day. That's a huge accomplishment. It may seem like a small step, but it's a big step. And this applies to any tune, folks, that you're learning, you're getting lost on. It's a sign that you just haven't learned each part well enough. All right? Unless it's really a long piece of music, like 3 pages or something, then the same process would apply, but for most tunes, you really just need to drill down on each part, and you probably need to learn it more deeply than you think. A lot of people think, oh, I got this, I know all the parts, but you really have to become like a master of each part. And what I mean by that is not playing it perfectly, just, again, making friends with it, becoming intimate with each part, all right? So I hope that's helpful, Rick, all right? If I think of any other thoughts on that, I'll add to it. But I know there's some other questions, so I'm going to move on to the next question. I need some sort of sound effect or like maybe Jeopardy. Like, I'm going to do that. Might be fun. Wait, hold on. Let me see. So let's see, as I look, we have the Jeopardy music playing. Do 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 do. Okay. Next question. I feel like I need like an image too. Next time I'll do that. All right. So Eduardo, should I press hard on the string when doing fourth finger? So fourth finger is hard, and you don't need to. The idea is not to press hard, not to be like straining your fourth finger. Fourth finger is your pinky. I would say, Eduardo, I talked about fourth finger before and have some lessons on that, and people have asked the question too, but they're not this particular question. So ideally, you're not clamping down with any of the fingers. So, but you'll want to get a good curvature on it. All right, you want all your fingers to be curved. Even the fourth. So notice the fourth is flatter, but it still maintains the same curvature. All right. You don't want to press too hard. You want to press just hard enough. Start with the E string, Eduardo. The E string is the easiest string to do fourth finger. You have the least amount of reach, and it's the lightest string. So I would say warm up to it. Use a B drone for tuning. I'm going to set that up now. Walk up to it. So you might be out of tune. For people new to it, they tend to play it flat. Can you hear that against the drone? That's why I recommend drones. That sounds better. And then just practice playing it, lifting. Seeing if you can just get the right amount of pressure, not too clamped down. And you can find the right amount of pressure. This applies to anything just by slowly lifting it until the note doesn't sound. So I lift it. It's hard to see, but I'm lifting it. And now you're hearing the harmonics. When I press it back down, you can hear the note. So let me just say that again and try to make it more clear. Turn off the drone. So to get the right amount of pressure, let's do this with first finger on E. I slowly release pressure until the note doesn't sound. I don't know if you can see my fingers. You can almost see a gap in my finger. Let's see if I can get the angle. And then when at a certain point, magically there's enough pressure to play that note. And so the same thing applies to fourth. You just kind of experiment with loosening or lightening the press until it doesn't sound, and then pressing it back down. So that will help you, Eduardo, get the right pressure. Hopefully that's helpful. So just an idea that comes to mind, if anybody has follow-up questions on fourth finger, because I've been noticing there's a lot of follow-up questions, let me know now. Okay, so I don't see any right now. Okay, so thank you, Eduardo. I'm going to move on to the next question. Let's see. No, wait. Let me do this. While I answer the next question. Do 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 do. I see a question from Frank, but I think I just answered it, Frank. Frank asks, I'm nowhere near good enough to start vibrato. Any tips with I'm trying to lighten my left fingers up? So, yeah, Frank, I think I just answered that question. All right, so moving on to Cindy McKenzie. I've been working on John Ryan's and feel like I'm ready for a new tune. Any suggestions? Okay, so, well, let's see. You've done John Ryan's. Maybe I'll just throw out a few suggestions, Joan. So, again, I'm trying to take notes so I can have this for you guys later. Other tunes related to John Ryan's. So, I guess there's two ways to approach it, Joan. You could look at other polkas that you could do. So I'll suggest some polkas, and then you could look at other tunes that are kind of at a similar technical level. So other polkas would be Bali Desmond polka. And the beginner version starts on G1. So the cool thing about picking a polka is that you could then go from John Ryan's, which is a polka, easily into another polka. So, and then now let's look at the question. Sorry, helicopter. A lot of helicopters in Los Angeles. I don't know why. It's I feel like shaking my fist every time a helicopter. Why are you disturbing this office hours, helicopter? Okay, so I just thinking out loud some tunes you could do, Joan. So let me just check something. I want to make sure the video is looking okay. It's a little choppy, but I'm working on. I'll talk about that after. I'm working on making these better, these office hours better. And so I wanted to share with you, but in a minute. So Joan, another tune you could do would be Old Joe Clark, I think, because John Ryan's, you start to really use the low second finger on E. So Old Joe Clark, Joan, would be another going. Maybe Soldier's Joy. No, let's see, Soldier's Joy. That works pretty well. It uses fourth finger though. But that would actually go well with John Ryan's, even though Soldier's Joy is typically thought of as an American tune. I think it would work nice. Okay, so thanks for your question, Joan. Moving back to the list. Let's see here. Okay, I see an easy question. Can you show us your drone box? So that question came from PM Hiker 224. So I don't have the drone box. That's back in San Francisco. I'm using an app called iTabla, which is actually more powerful than the drone box and cheaper. I forget how much it is. It's well worth whatever it costs, even if it's like 10 or 20 bucks. I would recommend it. And I'll just show you some features. So you can have different. They're all sort of Indian sounds, and then you can add tabla, which is the drum. So you can change the tempo, and then you can add another fun thing called swar Soir Mondial. That sort of harp sound. You can change the key. And lots of other things. It's called iTabla, and I love this app. But I also like having a dedicated drone box, and I use that when I practice at home, and we'll probably bring it down here soon. But basically what I like about that is that I'm free of the computer. I like to, especially when practicing at night, not have any devices. You know, just, damn helicopter. So I like to be free of the devices. So anyway, I use a dedicated drone box for that. And a pipe dream of mine, just to continue this thought, is to create a product like a drone box has more different sounds. So it doesn't, you can get other sounds besides just the Indian sounds, which I love the Indian sounds, but it'd be cool to have like an organ sound or like a string sound, and then other beats, you know, besides the Indian tabla, you know, like a bluegrass beat or a waltz beat, you know what I'm saying? So, but that's just, there's too many things to do, right? So anyhow, thanks for your question. Gonna move on to the next question. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Let's see. Sorry, it's somebody asked about bridge placement, and honestly, I can't answer that question. Terry, sorry, because I just don't know. I'm not a luthier, and there's some fiddlers are actually quite knowledgeable on how to like rehair the bow, and you know, I'm a bit of a nincompoop with that. Sorry, but I'm sure you could find YouTube videos on that, or people who are knowledgeable about that. I'm sure you could like learn how to make a violin on YouTube. Okay, next question from Emily Archibald. I notice most of your lessons are up, down on each note. How do I add slurring? Is there a guideline? How important is it to use consistent bowing throughout a song? That's a good question. Kind of a hard question to answer, and probably some conflicted views on this from other fiddlers. But I'll do my best, Emily. So, in a nutshell, it's kind of a personal thing. It depends on the style you're doing. It depends on this particular situation or the point you are in the tune, okay, whether you're going to slur or not. So I'll just give you a general guide to dealing with slurs, and this applies to everybody. So the first thing I usually say is, once you've learned how to do a slur, and let's back up a little bit. Maybe some of you are beginners and don't even know what a slur is. A slur is playing more than one note in a bow. So instead of going open one, down, up, by the way, that is called separate bows. Instead of doing that, we can do, say, 2 notes per bow. Down, down for open, and then up. Notice there's 2 notes. And just a beginning lesson on slurs, pause. Pausing is an amazing practice. Be kind to your hands. Give them time to reset in your direction. So you may be more advanced and be bored by that little statement, but you know, it can apply to very advanced things as well, like slur 8. Maybe that's, you know, where you're at, your particular challenge is what you're trying to work on. You would still find benefit from this pausing practice. All right. So basically you can practice slurs on simple exercises and then in tunes. And then in scales. So if you kind of take that progression of doing it on just 2 notes or 4 notes, then on a full scale, then you can transition to doing it on tunes. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But think of the scales not as just like this horrible thing you're supposed to do, but think of them as music. Think of scales as little tunes, all right, that help you to learn stuff. So let's go back to the easiest slur pattern, I think, is slur 2. You would do it on a scale. All right, I'm going to run through all the slur patterns now, but I want to mention that for all of these, I have play-along tracks on FiddleHed in which you get focused practice on slurring just 2 notes, slurring 4 notes, slurring a whole scale, and that just the practice of this on scales, just to jump ahead now, if you really can do all your slur patterns easily on any scale, then they'll just start to come out in tunes. And if they don't, you'll have more of an intuitive sense of how to add them in scales. But we'll get to adding them to tunes in a second. Now I'm just going to run through all the main slur lessons that I teach on FiddleHed. So slur 2, then we could do slur 3. You can master that with all kinds of patterns. Make up your own exercises. So that was open 1, 2. We could just go up, just go down, do 1, 2, 3 instead. Slur 3 can be used on jigs. There's a whole bunch of jig patterns. I'm gonna do them quickly now, so apologies, but just to do a brief survey. Slur 2, separate 1. Separate 1, slur 2. Moving on to 4-note patterns, slur 4. Do it on full scale. Sorry if I'm going too fast, but doing a survey, not a detailed lesson on each of these. Slur 2, separate 2. Slur 2, separate 2. Slur 2, separate 2. Slur 2. Real slow. That's cool because it creates the hoedown pattern of long, short, short. 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 All right, and then you could do longer ones. Slur 8. And then more complex ones like the Georgia Shuffle. I'm not going to get into the more complex ones right now. One last one that I'll get into, though, that I touched upon in the very first question, the pulsing question or the circular bowing, is slurring across strings. It's hard, I think, for beginners anyway. So you can start with just D, A on the down bow, pause, up bow. Two notes per bow. I've got dedicated exercises for this to really help you practice on FiddleHed. Add a pause if it's hard. Go backwards. This is usually harder. And then you can kind of start to play with it and make up your own exercises, kind of hybridize them like D, A, then up, A, D. This might be a little easier. Okay, so long answer to your question, Emily. And so you master the scales on little exercises and little. So here's kind of a diagram I pulled up before the lesson to help explain it. So basically you start with doing patterns on single notes or couple notes. Then you do what this is for an Irish embellishment called the mordant, which I teach in the Irish Fiddle Journeys course. and then you do whatever you're doing on scales, and then you start with tune phrases, and then eventually the whole tune. So let's stick with slurs and look at that progression. So let's go back to the easiest one, slur 2. And let's just, I just did it on a scale. Now you could just try it on some tune you're working on. So how about Arkansas Traveler? Just pulling a tune out of the air. So what you would do is you don't try to do it throughout a whole song. You start with the phrase. So I think that was part of your question, Emily. How do you know what to do a consistent bowing? And I'm sort of avoiding that part of the question because it's very individual. What I'm suggesting is you kind of experiment and do what sounds and feels right. So I could take like Arkansas Traveler, try slur 2. That's the first quarter. I'm just gonna try slur 2 on the first 4 notes. So slur 2, and then and start over. So you may notice that if I do this loop, each time I'll start in a different direction. Nothing wrong with that. So this may be something that other fiddlers disagree with, but I think you should be able to do things multiple ways. You should be able to start something up bow or down bow. The more you can do that, the more fluid you are, the more able you are to just kind of roll with things as you go through a tune. That said, you may find a way that works perfect for you in a particular song, and then you really practice that, cultivate that, all right? So maybe I experiment. I'm like, well, I don't like that. I don't quite like that. That doesn't feel quite right. Now I'm going to try something different. Like on those first 4 notes, instead of slur 2, I'm going to do slur 2, separate 2. Speed it up. So to me, that feels better because then I kind of get a consistent hoedown, long, short, short. But it may not feel right to you. Or maybe you're not good enough at sorry to put it that way, but you just haven't really learned slur 2, separate 2 that well yet, so you're not ready to do it. Fine, don't do it. Do just slur 2. Or you know what? Just do separate bows. Nothing wrong with just separate bows through a tune. You can still make it sound good. You can still have fun with it. So yeah, so I had a thought while playing that, but anyhow, so you experiment with, you really try to do these on tunes, then you try to do them on small parts of phrases. Sorry, I meant to say scales. You learn slur patterns, and anything you can any technique you practice on a scale, and then you try to play around with it in a tune by doing a loop on one little phrase, and then that your testing is not totally done yet. It's like little experiments. Then you would maybe do the first 2 quarters and see if that works with it. So anyway, good question. All of these questions are really good, but thanks. Now I'm gonna switch back and kind of look at, let's see. So next question is what I mean to say. I feel like that, anyway, Yuri is compiling them for me, and I'm hoping I'm not missing any. Apologies if I am. I feel like the order's changed a little bit, but So I'm going to do my best. I don't think I can go for 2 hours like I did last time, but I'll do my best to get to everything. So PMG Taylor, any suggestions on how to pull yourself up out of a low point in your fiddle journey? Good question. Right now, I don't feel like I'm progressing. It's been to the point that I go back and forth about quitting. Okay, so this is a really good question too, because I think everybody gets to that point. I myself haven't thought about quitting in quite a long time, but I did at some point, and I thought about it. I think when I was a kid, I thought about quitting. After a couple years, I was just like, just wasn't fun, and it sort of music magically became fun again. I'm grateful for that because I discovered ways to create with music rather than just follow the motions of classical music. Like, I think classical music could be fun and be taught, and I'm interested in teaching it, but I don't have the time and resources right now. But I think almost any kind of music could be presented in a way, but certain music will resonate with you and make it fun. So I'm going to do my best to answer your question, the PMG Taylor. I'm just going to call you Taylor. But what if, to really answer the question, I would ask what you are playing. So if you're still watching, let me know what you're playing and what you're working on. But I'm just going to throw out a few blanket ideas, a few general ideas. Basically, you're talking about getting out of a rut, okay? You're in a rut. You're feeling bad about what you're doing. You're feeling like you're not making any progress, that maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe you should do a different instrument. I don't know. So it's basically the one-word question for me to remember for later is, what to do when you're in a rut. And so one thing that I constantly go back to, and sorry if this is annoying, but to just connect with a good sound on something, okay? So again, a lot of times people, they stop enjoying it and they feel that they've gotten off track and they're not progressing because they're doing something that's just not sounding good because it's perhaps too advanced. And so I'm just such a huge fan of making something sound good, which usually means returning to some hardcore fundamentals. So Taylor, what if, I'm just going to call you Taylor because I'm not going to call you PMG Taylor 1972. So I would say, put on a D drone. I'm just going to do this now. And start with just getting a nice sound on D. Relax your body. I actually need to do this right now. I'm feeling like my stomach's a bit tight. Just noticing. And even the most advanced person watching, you can benefit from, throughout your practice, pausing from whatever hard thing you're doing, getting a nice sound, enjoying how good it sounds, and then seeing if you can feel your body relax and if you can enjoy that. And then slowly work on technique very repetitively, very hypnotically, until it not only sounds good but feels good. And you try to find techniques that are right at your edge, okay? So the circular bowing thing for me, for example, is a great one. Like, I literally sat there and just did. And then for me, I was trying to do, instead of going D to A pulsing, my challenge on my own fiddle journey was trying to do A. I wasn't going to talk about that because it's like, I think harder, and I wanted to, but basically, so this, instead of dipping down, I would go A, little dip up or bump up. So for me, that was hard, and it still is. And so, but I find it gratifying because it's right at kind of my edge, and I know what I can do. I can feel that my hands are close. And then I enjoy the process of doing something easier. And something harder. So Taylor, I suggest that you kind of try to identify where your edges are, like what you can do fairly well. Make sure you can do it well. Like take the easiest song, like Bylum Cabbage Down, beginner's tune. Most of you who've learned it probably just don't really play it that much, but can you go back to Bylum Cabbage Down and just make it sing? You know, instead of playing it as fast as you can with your fingers lagging behind, struggling to keep up, can you play it and make it like a song, like sing it? I'm not doing anything fancy, but believe it or not, I am enjoying playing that simple thing. And I think if you all do the same thing, you will not only enjoy your practice more, you'll technically advance, because there's so much fundamental stuff that needs to be practiced over and over again. And your brain wants to resist. Your brain's like, this is boring. I want to do that new thing he taught me on vibrato. I don't want to do this. I'm not going anywhere. But the magic trick is to somehow play very simple things and just enjoy it. And then progressively do harder things. Find that edge. Maybe you go too far and it's I'm starting to stumble and not sound good, and then go back. Oscillate between the hard and easy. So again, here's a diagram, right? So when you go back to the easy thing, so say Bylum Cabbage Down is your easy thing. But then you're trying to have a variation lesson on Bylum Cabbage Down. Say that's your challenge and you're finding that hard. Then you do that a little bit, and then you go back to your easy thing. Another easy thing to return to would be just a scale. Make it sound beautiful. It doesn't have to be fancy, it's just simple, and then back to the challenge. Another way to think about the challenge is maybe let's stick with the same example of the Bylum Cabbage Down variation. Maybe the challenge is playing the whole thing, and the easier thing is to just play one little bit. And then you do the next little bit. You see what I'm saying? And then eventually you go back to the challenge, the whole thing. Or maybe you're trying to do a certain speed, like. So then your challenge would be doing it that speed, but the easy version would be just doing it slower. So that is my basic answer to you on. Okay, so I have a follow-up from Taylor here. Okay, he says, I'm working in Bach Minuet 2 from Suzuki Book 1. The string crossings and rhythm are what I'm working on. I happen to have that book right here. Suzuki Book 1, Bach Minuet 2. By the way, I'm interested in helping people learn classical music. There's just too many things to do right now. But classical music does not have to suck. It doesn't have to be bad. So I'm just looking at it. Bachman. So the string crossing. You say the string crossings are hard, and the rhythm is what I'm working on. So we already talked about string crossings. If what you do is you just identify what's hard. All right. So first bar, string crossings, hard. So you wouldn't even do more than the first bar at first. You would just start with D3 to 1. Taylor, can you master this? Then can you master this? A3 to E low 2. If that's hard, do 2 bows. Then you would do the first 4 notes. Take a little pause, do it again. I'm starting to get it. Maybe not. Okay, 2 bows. Single bows. You go deep onto that. And if you patiently do that, you'll get that. Okay. So the rhythms. If the rhythms are hard, then this is getting away. This now I'm just talking more specifically about how to practice this tune, but it's still the same general process of if you're in a rut, how can you focus your practice in a way that you really can get to a point where you can do it well. That's what we're talking about. All right. And what probably, I don't know exactly what you're doing, Taylor, but probably I'm guessing you were just doing the whole tune and just being and stopping and whatever. Like I have students who are learning this, and what you need to do is just take out a pencil. I don't have a pencil handy here, but if I did, well, I have a pen, but I don't want to write on the music. So here's the music for those of you who don't know it. This is a Suzuki book. It's a great book. But what I would do is I would take a pencil. This is a pen, so I'm not going to do it. And you write brackets around the thing you got to practice. Maybe it's just 2 notes. You write pencil brackets lightly so you can erase it later. Maybe you bracket the whole first bar, maybe or the second bar, and then then each time you practice, you don't even do the whole tune. You start right in on that thing that's hard. Okay. So the other thing I'd mention is something I mentioned earlier is to listen to this piece a lot, to really hear it, listen to a version of it every day until you just can hear it in your head. And for those of you who have followed FiddleHed, there's a word for that. Here's the book. There's a word for that, which is audiation. All right. So this is another thing that might help you get out of your rut, is to learn to hear music and internalize it. It's such a powerful practice. And basically, you would play a little bit of a song. Start with little bits as usual, micro practice. Just start with, and then see if you can hum it. And then play it. And then now see if you can hear it in your head without humming. So this can be done by anybody. The most beginner student, the most advanced student can practice audiation to more deeply learn music. And I'm trying to teach that on FiddleHed just by prompting you guys to do it, but I'm also starting to create exercises. They're called like call and response exercises, where you hear, on a play along track, you hear something. Like, let's take a basic example, like a simple interval, open D to D1. Then try to hear that in your head. Do 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 do. So I got off on a lot of tangents there, but audiation is a practice that might just help you get out of your rut. You can start to, if you get the idea how this works, you can practice without your instrument. Like, you can listen to a song and then pause it and just see, can I hear that back in my head? Can I hum it? And then see if you can do that with little bits. So it's something I'm going to explore more And so stay tuned for that. So anyway, I'm going to move on. I spent a lot of time on that question, wandered quite a bit. But thank you for your question, Taylor. All right, moving to Lisa Brookins. Do ornaments come naturally? I'd love to add some to tunes, but can't get out of the play what's only written suggestions. Okay, so good question. Taking notes. Ornaments, ornaments, ornaments. Gonna play some ornaments, 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 ornaments. So kind of like vibrato, I'm gonna say some similar stuff. Start with just playing the tune itself really well. Much more important than adding a bunch of half-baked ornaments, okay? Sorry to put it that way. It seems like not that kind. But basically, first make a tune sound really good and the melody very clear, all right? It's way more important, at least to my way of thinking, than adding crazy ornaments. The next step, if you are interested in and you're a bit more advanced, then there's a simple process for learning what ornaments work, all right? And actually, before I get to the process, I would say, again, listen to versions of that song to see kind of like what other people have done, all right? And maybe you'll want to do something totally new. I mean, I love doing like an Irish ornament on a klezmer song. So taking like a cut or a real like. So I added the cut to Hava Nagila. But to be fair, there's nothing, that little thing isn't owned by Irish music. That ornament is just out there in the world. But that I tend to categorize things for teaching and understanding, and I categorize as sort of an Irish thing. But anyhow, so first learn the tune, all right? And then... So first learn the basic version of the tune, and then take a phrase and go between basic and whatever variation you want to add. If you're not sure what variation to add, just add something you know. And if you don't have any ideas, then don't worry about it for now. It's not that important. But if you are interested and you want to try a particular variation out, here's how the process works. So say we're doing Kerfunken Jig, or no, Carry Polka. You want to add an ornament. You want to add like a mordant, which would be. All right, so let's say that's your goal. You would start by like, I'm going to cut back to this same progression. So you would start, this is exactly what we're working on. You would start by adding it on the A1 note. So we have A1, but that might be too hard. Maybe you need to slow down the variation at first. So you get good at it on a single note, speed it up. And then you add it to maybe two notes. So sorry, I'm adding it to the first note, but adding more notes from the phrase. Now I add the first four notes. All right, so now that I got that going, we can alternate between a basic version and the variation version. So here's the basic. Now variation. Basic. So this will be a way for you to discover if this ornament works, if you like it, and then you can start to practice it and integrate it into the tune that way. And in a way, you're kind of being your own teacher. You're kind of like, because you're taking something easy that you know, it's almost like the easy part is helping you with the hard part, and then helping you to figure out how to do the hard part and whether or not you want to do it. But that's the whole practice in a nutshell. It's like the basis of my Irish Fiddle Journeys course is to go between a basic version on a small phrase and then the variation. And say you get it. Say you get this down. What's the next step? Next step is try to do the entire A part with only that variation. Don't throw too many things in at once. So and then say like, okay, that was good. Let me go back to the basic. And do the whole thing basic and then add the variation. And so it's just an ongoing process. Experimentation. You're like a scientist. You do it, you do the control group, which is like the basic, and then you have the experimental group, which is like the ornament. Okay? So I just want to look at your question again. So yeah, so I'd love to add some to tunes, but I can only get out of the play what's written suggestions. One other idea for that is to memorize everything so that you're free of the written music. So let's say you're learning, let's go back to Taylor's question on this minuet, or sorry, I think I talked about the wrong song, but I forget. Anyway, I'm gonna stick to this same example. And so if you want to add, so you could add ornaments to a classical tune. People do it, you know, it can be done. Why not? So let's just use that as an example. You would memorize the thing first so that you're free of the music. So whatever tune you happen to be learning, before trying to add stuff, I would say, and you might disagree with this, some advanced fiddlers might disagree with it, but I'd say internalize it. Then once you've got the basic essential melody internalized, then you can start to really play with it, okay? And maybe you can use the sheet music to help you figure out where you want to focus. Like maybe I want to get this thing, add an ornament to the first bar. So, okay, so I'm gonna look at the sheet music, and now I'm gonna play with ornaments. Nah, it's too weird. All right, and then you start to play with it. So if you liberate yourself from the sheet music, then you can add stuff more easily. So speaking of that, I'm now working on a how to read. It's called the Note Reading for Fiddlers course, and I'm going to release a lesson on it this Thursday. And it's basically a very intuitive, starting with things for beginners, leading to more advanced things, but basically trying to teach people how to read music, in particular fiddlers, in a way that makes more sense and that is more fun and more intuitive. And I might do a special webinar, or I don't know, I'm not figuring this out, but eventually to help people who are interested in this, just do a dedicated thing on note reading to help you guys learn it. And if some of you might not want to learn note reading, just know that that's fine too. It's okay. You can keep learning by ear. Learning by ear is better, I think, for folk music. But being able to have the skill of reading something, you can get, here's another book that I love, The Fiddler's Fake Book. You can go on a fiddle journey around the world, play some Scottish tunes, American tunes, Irish, and you can basically accelerate your learning a little bit if you can read. But being able to play by ear is, so I'm off on a tangent, sorry, but being able to play by ear is most important. A lot of classical players are locked into reading what's on the page, which now is more relevant to your question about adding ornaments to stuff. If you're not so locked into what's on the page, you can hear the thing in your head, audiation, then it allows you to be more creative. Okay, so thank you all for your patience with the tangents and stuff. So quick question from Jacob and Charlie. What do you use for a metronome? When I do use a metronome, I have an app that I use. I'll show it. Let me just tell you what it is. So the app I use is just called Metronome. I think it's called Metronome. It's called Pro Metronome. All right, Pro Metronome. We're all pros. So, but there's tons of these things online. A lot of them are free, and this one has a feature I like called Rhythm Trainer. So hopefully you can hear it. So this one has a feature called Rhythm Trainer. So you can have the metronome stop for 4 beats. 2, 3, 4. So notice it stops playing. So I can really practice my timing. 2, 3. It's hard when the metronome goes away to keep the beat. I missed it. I'm going too fast. Got it. So that's hard. That's actually something that's, if we want to talk about playing at your edge, that it's kind of at my edge doing a little bit. But actually, once I get going and do it enough, but playing with the metronome is a very powerful way to practice things. And I've answered this question before, and I think I'm just gonna jump off the question now because I have it on the micro lessons part of the site. But basically, if you want to learn to play with a metronome, you would, and that's not even your question, but I'll just close by saying you would start with single notes and just being able to play along with single notes until you can get in the groove of the metronome. It's harder than you think, I'll say that. Okay, moving on. So Blur Obs, that's Bernadette, I know. Thanks for attending, Bernadette. Do you have any good intermediate sheet music for tunes where shuffle or tuckabowing is written into the tune with slurs? Trying to think. You mean like the Georgia Shuffle? I don't think so, Bernadette. Blur Obs. But I'm gonna put down your question and try to get back to you on that, and maybe create that eventually. But I don't think I have that. So the question is sheet music with shuffle or tucka. So sorry, Ed, I can't think of anything off the head. Just there's a lot of stuff on FiddleHed, so I can't think of anything right now. By the way, I'm planning on upgrading this whole office hours process and making it so that I can share my screen with you eventually and show you parts of the site where you can find stuff, because it might make it possible for me to answer something like this next time if I can easily go on the site and look for it. But so I'm gonna answer maybe one or two more and then stop, because I feel like my brain is getting fuzzy. Okay, so if I don't get to your question, apologies. I'll do it next time. But okay, so Larry Reese, how to make backing tracks to play along with. So okay, well, I was just speaking about this with a student in a Zoom lesson last night, student Nick, and you can make your own backing tracks if you have recording software. So if you have a Macintosh, I know that comes with something called GarageBand, and you can make backing tracks. And basically what you could do is you could set up, they have easy ways to set up a repeating beat, like or even like a metronome. All right. And so And then what you could do is you could learn to play the chords to a song. So say that it's Kesh jig, you would record the chords like, and then after you've recorded the chords, you would then go and play along with them. You could either play the chords for like a few minutes, which could be good practice, or most of the software allows you to take one little piece and loop it many times. And that's what I do with, I use a different software called Reason, but basically have one repetition of the song start to finish, and then loop it many times and speed it up or not. But basically you could do this though if you learn chords or you play another instrument like guitar, you record it yourself. And you could even do it, I tell you what, a simple way is you could take like your voice memos. So on my phone I have a little voice memo recording thing. I'll just demonstrate this. This is kind of fun. I turn off the speaker for it. So this is a super low tech, relatively low. So I have voice memos, and most smartphones have this. So I press record, and now I'm gonna play. This is fun. I'm just gonna do it. So I play like. So let's check it out. So I just recorded it on my phone. This is the latest recording. Now I'm going to turn back on the speaker and play along with it. Let's see how this goes. And now I'm going to play. This is fun. I'm just going to do it. So I play like. Crowd goes wild. That was cool. Thanks for that. That's a cool question, and that's how easy it is. You could, if you know how to play chords, you play them enough time, you can just do a simple recording, and then you have to play it back on something that's loud enough for you to play with. But I think that it's great because if you play that, you would get good practice just playing the chords a lot. And then eventually, so you'd be getting good practice on the, say you did that for 4 times through the whole song, and then you recorded it, that's really hard, and you're getting good practice with that. It may help too. I got a tip for you too with that. Say you want to do that, you may want to listen to a basic version of the melody on headphones so it's not being recorded. So I know that melody Kesh jig really well, so I just can hear it in my head and just play it, kind of hear it with the chords. I was kind of humming the melody while I was doing it, and then that kind of looked like easier than it was maybe, but technologically that might be the very easiest way because most people have this. You can just do it, and even if you just record it once. Like I did it twice there. It's not too long, but then you just start it over and play it again. You've created a simple backing track. So cool, good question. All right, so let's see. I might do one more. Let's see. So I'm going to do a quick answer. Georgie from South Africa here. Hey, Georgie. I did your lesson on Irish Washerwoman, but cannot get it up to speed like Andre Rieu or John Sheehan plays it. Any tips? And just to follow up to a previous question, use the metronome. And use the metronome to speed up each individual part. So if you speed up, so Irish Washerwoman, you would take what? So you don't try to play the whole thing fast or speed up. You figure out, like, you speed up one part at a time. It's the same thing that I always come back to, like, don't do the, like, master a small part of a song, micro practice. Maybe just the first 6 notes. Then speed those up. That's hard if you go fast enough, but if you speed up those 6 notes, you'll be better poised to do. And so this next 6 notes are even harder. Speed those up on their own. And you may only be able to do like a few beats per minute per day. So metronomes or markings are beats per minute. So you would just keep track, Georgie, keep track of what your fastest tempo for each part is. If you're meticulous, you'll eventually be able to ramp up the speed. But honestly, a whole other answer is don't try too hard to play fast yet if you're a beginner. That's like the bigger lesson here. Just get a good sound make it flow at a shorter. Sorry, my brain I'm losing it. Okay, one last question from Michael Lancaster. When trying to improvise, I seem to morph in playing the melody. What technique could help? I seem to morph in playing the melody. What technique would help? Okay, so I think you're saying that when you're trying to improvise with a song, you end up playing the melody. I think that's what your question is, Michael. And I would say there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Like, a whole way to improvise is to just take the melody and play with it and add variations. Let's stick to the last tune. So say we're doing Irish Washerwoman, and lessons on improv coming later this summer, by the way. So a basic way to do improv is to play a bit of a melody, tune improv tune, and then you improvise for a bit with a drone, no beat, completely free time, just G. And then you would go back to the tune after you've improvised a little bit. You know, maybe even return to a smaller piece of the tune. Improvise a bit. And so I think what Michael is asking is, like, he's trying to come up with something new, but he keeps playing the tune. Maybe that's all right. Maybe just take parts for your improvisation section. Just play with adding variation to the tune. Use the tune as a basis. playing with the phrases of the tune. Can you hear the tune still? I think it's maybe the best way to learn improvisation. So just take melodies you know and cut them up, mix them up. This is all coming in the course, so stay tuned. And then after you've messed around, fiddled around, just return to playing a simple version of the melody. All right. So I must apologize. I'm feeling fried, but I'm gonna try to do something different and just kind of let me just see how many questions we have left. Okay, not too many. So I'm gonna try to. Oh no, a lot. Oh no, not too many. Okay. Sorry, folks. I think I can do all the questions. I'm having it. My computer's running slow. Yeah. Yuri, can you pause typing for a bit if you're listening? Can you please pause typing? It's I think it's slowing down the so gosh, I don't see any questions after Michael's question. Let me thanks for your patience. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Adaptive 1, 2, 3. How to double stop when one finger down on one string, but don't want the finger to touch the other string. Well, official last question. Okay, so double stop, one finger. Okay, thanks for your question, Adaptive 1, 2, 3. And so what he's asking, or she is asking, I'm sorry, I don't know who Adaptive 1, 2, 3 is. It's hard to tell if you're a man or a woman, and doesn't matter at all. Okay, so D1. Say you're trying to play D1 and open A as a double stop. And the question is, sometimes you get that sound because your finger, your D1 is touching the open A. And so what you have to do is, there's a few tips. One is to plant the finger in between G and D strings instead of, so you really are far from the A string. Hopefully that makes sense. So then that way I can get a clear sound. And you can practice it with single notes. So D1 to open A. Hold down the D1. And then do both at the same time. All right, so again, you need to clear. You don't want your first finger to touch the open A, so you've got to move it. You've got to plant it a little further away. You can actually touch the G string, and then do single notes. And then you're golden. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Okay, I think I'm at the end of my rope, and I know some of you already started to drop off too. So I'll just say thanks, and know that I'll be doing this again. I'm not sure exactly when, maybe just in 2 weeks, but at the very least 2 weeks, so that way I know a lot of you have questions, and I want to be there for you, especially now since you're all fiddling a lot. So thanks again. I'm going to play a little music to say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. And I appreciate all your showing up. Okay, here we go.